Eric, we are the champions.
We are.
You know? And that I use the royal we because once you join a crew, it's not the accomplishment of one person because there is no I in team. It's what the entire team does collectively. So Sam joining up with us, we could say the three of us are world champions, and it feels amazing.
Yeah, if people haven't realized it yet, we're a collectivist, crew here at Iron Culture. That myself and Omar look down as the two monarchs over this collectivist society. Of course, at the top of that non-hierarchical hierarchy. And so, to having Sam on today, Sam Okunola, folks, 2017 IPE Natural Bodybuilding World Champion. And multiple-time second place runner-up in various world championships, including two WNBF Worlds and the 2012 IFPA Yorton Cup. This guy is royalty in the natural bodybuilding world, and therefore so are we. So we greatly appreciate him sharing his accomplishments with us. So it was awesome to have him on.
Eric, it's interesting, I'll just say, when you talk to someone that has been doing the damn thing for so long, some of the similarities, like we had the conversation with Brian Whitaker, also not just bodybuilders, but also powerlifters, where Sam's basically at the peak of his game right now, and he made a choice to retire. Who knows if it'll be permanently? And then the rationale behind that, the lessons learned along the way, the myth of being hardcore, what lifting has done for him, the origin of what allowed him to be competitive in lifting. We cover so many things that I think it doesn't surprise me. It amazes me in a good way, genuinely, when we talk with, let's call them veterans of the sport, because there's more than just the act of lifting that comes with lifting. And really, when you start overturning those stones, you get to the heart of the matter, I think.
No, that's very well said. This is someone whose bodybuilding bona fides speak for themselves. Winning in his first sanctioned show that he competed in after one he did just for fun in college in 2009. Winning his IFPA Pro card in an OCB show in 2009. He then went on to, like I said, place second in 2012 in his pro debut at the highest spot in IFPA at the time, the Yorton Cup, and went on to win a pro show in 2014. And then he had just some massive years in 2017 and 2019, like I said, winning the IPE Worlds in 2017, taking second place in 2017 and 2019 WNBF Worlds. And he's also won in the Classic division some untested shows competing against his enhanced brethren. So this guy has an incredible physique, but I think what you'll learn is that unlike many who, with his talents, could have rested on their laurels, he is just has hard work bred into him. But it's not something that he glorifies. It's something that he sees as just a necessity that he's gotten through his life lessons, being an Army veteran, being, as he said, a first-generation American, talking about his lessons from his parents. And I was very inspired just to talk to him, and also just the perspective and how I put it, his adaptive mentality. Like, he's a very competitive person. He definitely aims to win, yet at the same time, he doesn't dwell on losses. And the only way that he dwells on them is in a constructive way of how do I now move forward and improve myself. So a lot of humility, but also an extremely hard worker, and has that double-edged sword perfectly honed on the right side. And I was just honored to talk to him.
Eric, we're finally doing what we want to do with this episode today.
Yeah, as you've said many times before, we say we cater to a all-inclusive smorgasbord, that's the technical term, of strength and physique sport. Yeah. But really, it should be physique and strength sport.
Yeah. The emphasis needs to be placed correctly when it comes to Iron Culture. And we got to get, it's politics, right? We have to appeal to everyone. And strength athletes, they're making waves. We got USAPL Nationals coming up. There's a lot of notoriety and attention placed on strength sports. And we play the game, Eric. You've competed for the both of us in powerlifting, in strongman, in the Highland Games. So you've done it for both of us. And Sam, that is our outward appearance, but we really care about hunks being hunky and getting yakety yacked. So whenever we return to our tonal center, be called, like where we really feel at our truest self, it just feels like it's going to be a monster episode. So I'm thrilled to have you on. I'm thrilled to be talking about the only sport that matters, bodybuilding, once again today.
So Sam Okunola, It is our pleasure to have you on. Welcome to Iron Culture. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me on. A huge fan of the show. Been watching you guys for quite some time, obviously. Eric, been a legend in the sport, and uh, and Omar, obviously, being the true gentleman that you are, uh, Canada's finest. Don't tell Jeff that.
Oh, snap.
Truly honored to chop it up with you guys and just shoot the shit. So.
Well, that's what we do best here. We take aim and we shoot that poo. And I'm excited to have you on because you've been in the game, almost a complete overlap with my competitive career as well. We were talking pre-recording here. I did my first show in 2007. You did your first shows in 2009. Very similar track record for me. I'm still competing and I have yet to win my pro card. You won your pro card in your very first show. Besides that kind of minor difference, it's pretty much the same as Omar will tell you. In 2019, I did win the overall at a small INBF show that did not have enough competitors to win a pro card. In 2017, you won IPE Worlds. So I feel like
you're both winners.
What everyone wants to see is the showdown between us, Sam, because you look side by side. You got my CV, your CV, and you're like, who's a better bodybuilder? I don't know. So I think we just need to really decide it on stage.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait to see if that ever happens. So.
Yeah, that's right. I guess the problem is that folks. I don't know if you've seen this. Sam recently announced his retirement. So we're never gonna know if I'm which one of us is better. I'm pretty much, like I said, kind of on par with never having the showdown with this world champion that we have on today. But yeah, it's one of those dream wish matchups that maybe one day we'll have. Maybe someone can do like a CGI kind of comparison. But until then, we're just gonna have to take it as a tie. I don't know if you're comfortable with that.
I'm fine with that. Hologram will be a great addition to that. So even a hologram like my physique back in 2017 and just put that into future stages, that would be perfect. I mean that's my personal package to date. So
actually, a big shout out to Dr. Zerdos. He suggested this a while ago that we need to start bodybuilding trading cards like back in the day, like they had baseball cards. And if you remember, it was in the 90s. I don't know if you guys were into this, but they had the Marvel cards where they had the actual superheroes on the cards. And some of them, the limited edition ones, were holograms.
Holographic.
You could tilt it.
Yes.
Yeah, and you would get a different, like it'd be like, the Hulk as Bruce Banner, and you tilt it and he hulks out. Or it would be like, Wolverine with nothing out, and then you turn it and then snicked, and the 6 blades pop out. So we could have hologram cards of us, and it could be like going from side chest to most muscular, or I think even more hilariously, it'd be going from like deepest in the off season to then shredded. Just so it's like this fat, not fat kind of comparison. So if there's any investors out there, if Shark Tank is listening, just consider natural bodybuilding hologram cards. I think that's probably going to be the next big financial hit.
Let's go ahead and steal the idea. You can put the reference out there, like, hey, dated.
Yeah, we'll sue their ass.
Gotcha.
We have a very real legal team in Delaware. We've already sued Egypt, won. We've conquered the pyramids, ancient Samaria, once again with their ziggurat. Their legal defense was, well, we're a ziggurat. We're not a pyramid. It's a different thing. It's stepwise. It's not. Anyways, and we said, we don't buy your bullshit. We're coming for you and everything that you own. I just want to note very quickly how eerie it is, Eric, our childhoods, how they mimicked one another. Well, I guarantee like probably 5% of the people, like 3% would know what you're talking about. I 100% do Marvel Flare cards, 1993, 94. Another subset was called Marvel Overpower that were simply fantastic. This guy knows, I don't know how we have such a similarity in growing up, but we do.
Well, actually, Sam, what year were you born in, if you don't mind me asking?
83.
83, same as me. So the reason why we're all simpatico here is because we're all 80s babies. That's what's up. Yeah. And the messed up thing is at 80, if you're born in 83, if you look it up, you might be Gen X, Gen Y, or millennial. Like they change what we are all the time. I'm least comfortable with the millennial tag, but I'm sure as I get older and there's a new generation that can carry a negative stigma, that I want to be a millennial as I start to feel old. But Sam, we're late 30s. I'm 38. I don't know. Are you 38 yet? I don't know what month you're born in.
I will be 38 in December. I have to think about that for a second. It's been a while.
Okay, so I'm actually far older than you. So if I can give you just some wisdom here, I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of natural bodybuilders are at their peak, their prime, in their late 30s, early 40s. So tell us here on Iron Culture, we got to get the hot goss. We're going to start at the end. This is going to be like Pulp Fiction. Okay,
Hey.
we're going to start at the end, and then we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. Again, another 80s baby reference there. Why is it that you at the tippity top, at the peak, where you're mixing it up with world champions, you are a world champion yourself, you're being hypothetically compared to the likes of Eric Helms, why would you decide to retire at this point?
Throughout this video, maybe like in the next like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so, some of the reasons why I decided to retire, you might be hearing that in the background too. It's called kids. If you don't know what they are, little things that run around. So I'm not, again, the reason why I was late on the call was because I'm trying to put one of those down. Also, I mean, again, so when I compete, but like as you stated, I'm not I just want to do one show and just like pack it up and that's it. I think I was good with the when I first started. Hopefully you guys not hearing like the kid in the background, but that's my dog trying to go to sleep. But so back in, I started like with like the 1 or 2 shows a year, obviously. But then it's like, I think the notion in the back of my head at the time was, it was hard for you to stay conditioned all year round. I'm like, why not? If it's done right, what's the problem? I don't think, it shouldn't be. It can be done if it's managed properly, right? But at the end of the day, too, it's a mental, aspect too, like of pushing yourself to that sort of limit. And when you tell people like, you prep like all year round, like, technically, it's not prep all year round. It doesn't really get to that sucky mode to like later on in the year. Which obviously, if you plan right, you can manage that a little bit. So going back, that's always been my thing. But later on, as you more compete, it's never how many trophies can I get? It's more how can I push this natural body to what it's truly capable of doing. So fast forward and a few years later, I'm like from the 4 shows, let's do 6 shows. I think the most I've done in the year is like 7, which is about 2017, I think. Which I would say was a pretty good year. I think the only show that I lost that year was at WBF Worlds to San Juan. San Juan. And and fast forward now, knowing that I have 2 kids now. One is about to be 2-year-old, and one is just about to be 7 months in like a few days. And just if I was competing, just doing 1 show a year and that's it, that's doable. It's like a 1 event throughout the year, but that doesn't sound challenging to me. So what's I could qualify and go for good worth and place top 2 and just repeat that over and over again. But what's the fun in that? I think the prep for that would suck because there's no challenge there. So, but and not being able to do that, the other alternative, the top reason is just, I just want to, I don't want to be hopping on a plane and going to places and traveling. Yes, I can hold the family around, but I don't know if you have kids. Just like, I was telling on the last YouTube video that I dropped, I was comparing packing your kids up from just, like an hour drive to like your in-laws' house. It's like should be an Olympic sport. To see how fast you can do that. If you say you're going to get out of the house in 20 minutes, you get out of the house exactly 20 minutes. And if you go over that, you'll be fined or dock points or something like that. So that is a challenge in itself. So imagine trying to diet for a show, trying to peak for a show, and you are stressing about, kids. I commend people to do it. People do it, but I just don't want to do that. And I'd rather not go to shows myself and leave my family here. It's a weekend, but last time I competed before my daughter, 2019. My wife was pregnant at the time. Hell, when I did junior nationals in Chicago, which was in May, I believe, or April or May, and like my wife was like, within like 6 weeks or so. So it's like literally anything now. The only reason I did this show is because of Chicago. it's within like driving distance where I'm at. If push come to shove, I'll hop in the car, I'll floor it, like do 90 miles an hour or something like that, and get here like 3 hours. That's the only reason why I did that show. So kudos to her for letting me like even try to even compete and do that. But she understands obviously that maybe not so obvious that you work hard towards something that I'm truly passionate about. And again, it's not about the trophy; it's truly about the challenge of it. But yeah, that's the bigger reason of why I'm retiring. You never know. I mean, 2, 5, 6 years from now, 10 years from now, if daughter grows up and I still like dust the trunks of the case they're hanging up in right now, might be an opportunity. But right now, I just don't see it. Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense, man. And it sounds like you still keeping that competitive fire alive with competing in transporting toddlers out of the house under 20 minutes. So I think
if you've never tried, I highly recommend if your lats is if you have an imbalance in one of your lats, so just like hold your kid in one right hand. If you're weak on the right, hold the right hand. Don't switch at all. You don't want to do that. You just make sure you do that, and let me know how that feels.
Omar, he's dropping keys. We're only a few minutes into this interview, and he's already told people how to balance out their lats. All they need to do is find a partner, have a child. Yep, step 1, step 2. Let's take a step back just to make sure. Get consent. Ensure that it's a loving relationship, so you actually will have access to said child. So you unfortunately will have to do some child rearing and some parenting. And then at that point, boom, lats even. You just gotta kind of maybe time it, and then you're good to go. So keys.
I'm even thinking about patenting this particular move that I do. I mean, I don't want to talk about it right now. I mean, or maybe you can get one of your lawyers in Delaware to let's draw something up for me real quick. So absolutely, everybody's tampering my IP right here.
No, we got you. There'll be an ebook. It'll have 3 authors, and you'll be in the acknowledgments. The 3rd author will be our LLC, and then the other 2 will be Omar and myself. No, it also, yes.
Well, one thing, the most notable thing I heard Sam say, besides everything about the reason for not competing in, I would say the indefinite future, because I do want Eric to talk about I'm retired. What does that really mean? I need Eric to pull you back into it. But before we do that, I just want to note that Sam said, I don't know if you guys have kids. And my response was going to be, we don't, myself and Eric, but we have each other. And that's more than enough is what I like to think. So I don't know if that was a slight against us or something like that. But Eric, for a second, my head just turned and then it all resumed to normal. That's all.
I apologize for assuming. for assuming that.
I thought Omar was going to say, I don't know if I have kids either. But
yeah. At this point in time, I don't. Yeah.
Yep. I have yet to be informed that I have children, says Omar. All right. So we've talked about all the important stuff thus far. No, that makes a ton of sense. And this is actually a theme that we've seen in a lot of very high-level competitors we've had on. We had Brian Whitaker on to talk, about kind of the way he does the whole bodybuilding thing. And he provided a very interesting perspective in that he had a priority list. And at the top of it, of course, was family and also his career. The guy has a PhD in economics. He's a full professor. And I believe is spirituality. So career, spirituality, family, and then in 4th place, bodybuilding. And he said, and within the constraints of that, I optimize it. And we all know that, Brian's an incredible hard worker, but he's a man with priorities. And I think what you're showing me, Sam, is that is a consistent trait among some people at the very highest level of the sport. And I think that's something to be commended and thought about, especially for all those who think that bodybuilding is just all about sacrifice. Don't get me wrong, it is. You gotta grind, and you alluded to that to some degree, but that doesn't mean that it needs to come at the cost of the things that you hold dear to your heart, and that I think it can still enhance one another. So I think that's a very cool perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I think somebody younger, like around my age, also Garino Mackey. I think Garino took like a decent amount of years off. I did joke. The last show that I saw him in, the last time on 2019 was, you're just busy having kids, too busy having kids. Is back very active right now. The show that Charlie from RP Strength competed in last week, Garino actually competed at that show too and crushed it. I mean, he won his class, when got an overall in bodybuilding, by the way, and he went to win overall in classic. So, but the point is, like, to your point. I mean, again, I mean, I think this is not like a show. Not to like date myself or sound old, like, oh yeah, the kids nowadays, like, whatever. But I mean, started with starting the sport when YouTube. I mean, YouTube was like popping. Obviously, that's how I met, or that's how I knew of Omar. And it was popping. I mean, his Facebook was okay. Nobody was like, I mean, Facebook was just like, oh yeah, checking on your uncle or something like that. Facebook. I mean, and no Instagram at the time. But you just live just to live. Like, it was fun. It was social gathering too. I mean, funny story how I actually started was I met Doris. Doris and I went to the same college together. We took the same. We were in College of Business in Northern Illinois. We took the same class together. We never bought the same book because we had to like copy of each other. And I was in the rec. I think I did like some local show, like it's called Great Physique, not sanctioned by any means. It was like some charity stuff. And my KMPE teacher was like, "Hey, you look, I just fresh out of the military, maybe like 2 years out or something like that. And the last thing I want to do is like go run a ruck run or something like that. Like, just looking for some sort of avenue to like work out, right? I got to the gym, went to Northern Illinois. I did maybe like that Great Physique show, which I won the show. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, the idea of putting like a posing trunk on stage and people staring at you was like, no fucking way, like hell no. And here we are, 18 something, however long years later, and that opinion has definitely changed. And I think the following year, I'm like, you know what, this is actually fun. And what got me into it is that, wow, I can literally invest X amount of time and change my body into this. It's almost like a control. You have the control, so you have the ability to do that. And before the years of fake natties or half natties, or like the idea of like it's not possible didn't even exist. It's like, I mean, hell, I was so naive that I was like, oh, I gotta eat like chicken like Jay Cutler. Sorry, Jeff Nipp, if you're watching this, I know that's your guy. I was like, yeah, keep going.
Oh, we just had him on, and he grudgingly admitted that he shouldn't have won the '07 Olympia, which I think is a big step forward for him as a fanboy. So sorry, carry on.
But yeah, went to the rec. I mean, Australia, the rec center, and I saw Doris. And Doris, I mean, being the stacked, human that he is, all I saw was like quads and calves, the shit that I don't have. I'm like, yeah, I need to talk to that guy. I'm like, hey, you ball? It's like, nah, son, I bodybuild. And I'm like, cool, awesome. And it was just asking me for a spot, and that's how we kind of just casually just started, talking, and that's what she wrote. And Doris is one of my best men. I mean, still one of my best friends till today. But what I was trying to, and he had a notoriety like in the natural body community at the time. I mean, still, and he had a YouTube channel, which was kind of fun to do. Like it was you get a couple of AdSense here and there, but was not doing it for like monetary reasons. It was just to discuss the love. I mean, no sick edits. It was just pointing the camera and just shoot. It was looking back at those videos right now, like, if I'm like feeling some type of way, I watch those videos, like those like almost like the pure, it's still pure in a way, but it's just like I mean, snowstorm. We drive this like, his crappy Honda Civic through the snowstorm just to go train because we just love to train, things like that. So circling back, I mean, so now you have people that are maybe enter for different reasons, for social cloud or whatever, what have you. And going back, I made a post the other day on Instagram saying like, I think people just want to like, watch and work hard. I'm like, it's not that. I mean, it's not hard. It's not working hard. Like, I don't need to show you I'm working hard. I don't need to tell you I'm working hard. I'm like, oh my God, I'm grinding so hard. Like, nobody needs to know. Like, we know, but I think you need to like show the world how hard you grinding. So, but to the point is, training or competing for bodybuilding, I mean, it's hard, but to me, at this point in this stage, it's not that hard. If that makes any sense. I know you know what to expect. You know what's on the it's literally you have a plan, you execute, you know what to do, and once you get to the point where you start like self-doubting yourself, you hire one of your friends that's super smart, that's not going to second guess yourself, and just just tell me what to do. I'm just going to go ahead and execute. So it's not that hard. So competing for a show, it's not the hardest part. It's not, oh my God, I got family now. Like, hell, I mean, just find a way to make it happen. Waking up early, going on your walk, or maybe going up late at night, making a conscious effort to increase your need because you don't have time for cardio. So the point is, it's not that hard to train if I want to train right now and compete for a show. It's just the fact that I just don't want to miss that time away or putting your family in a certain situation that I'm like, oh yeah, sorry guys, I'll be going for a weekend. I'm traveling somewhere. Of course, you're not traveling for a show. Is we want to fly on the Thursday, on the Friday. You want to fly on the Thursday to, be in air and all that stuff, water retention, all that wild, variables that you have to deal with. So it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm going to fly in, Friday. I'm going to come back, Saturday night. I mean, it's just the stress of it. It's just something I want to put myself through. One, which I think, in a weird way, will make it not fun for me. It will make me not appreciate or love the sport. I don't want to resent the sport that I truly, truly love. So that's when, you kind of just want to leave it alone as it is. And if that time comes when things are a little bit manageable, why not? So, but if it doesn't come, I am completely fine with where I'm at. That was a long-winded explanation, but
it was a good one though. I think you described how you've made peace with the way things are, but you're also open to coming back. And I totally get it that even among experienced competitors, because I very much do experience it the same way, like bodybuilding, generally contest prep is not hard. It's hard at points, but it is not the same kind of difficulty it was when I started. It was like, oh man, how do I get in shape? What's going to happen? Once you've kind of figured out the formula for yourself, and then each season your life's a little bit different, and how do you fit the pragmatic logistical realities of your life with prep integrated into it, you can do it, and it'll be very predictable typically. But it does come at a cost. It's kind of like there's always some RAM that is being taken up, is what it feels like for me. Like in 2019, I traveled, I did like the same number of conferences I did the year prior, and I was competing like sometimes 5 days after I would land in a new country.
I definitely think you posted about it, or we talked about it when we saw each other. I'm aware. That's a totally different kind of grind right there. So,
well, to be honest, I made like a commitment, like I'm going to do these shows, but I've learned so much. I've coached so many people. This is my 4th season. I don't have the same competitive experience you do, but I felt I was at the point where I could live my life the way I normally do and manage prep. But I think the point is that I still had to manage prep. It still takes, it's that kind of RAM running in the background. And I could 100% understand if something is as important as raising your children comes up, that could just not be worth it. So I think I commend you for that. And I totally understand. I think people miss the difference between something being stress-free and something being a stress they can manage without issue, but you're still managing it. So I get it. So we started at the end, like I said. Let's go back to the beginning. Something that I think is very interesting. We're both born in '83. You, my friend, are a veteran of the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service. I am a veteran of the military branch that pretends to be in the military, the Chair Force. So I did a 4-year enlistment in the Air Force. I got out in 2005. When did you do your enlistment in the Army?
I went straight from high school, 2003. Got out in '07, and I came back in and did like another 20 months reserve. And I officially got out in 2009. So.
Got it. So you had a good little stint in the real military. So what was your MOS?
I was a 42 whiskey. I was supply. So it was I was supply, and most of my duty tour, was like the last 16 months of my duty tour was in South Korea. So that was a fun duty station.
Very cool.
It was fun. It was fun.
I had some friends, not that they're not friends anymore, but they're not there anymore. I had some friends who were stationed in Korea because they were Korean linguists. Because I was a Arabic linguist, and some of the guys who I went to basic training with, they ended up also becoming linguists, and they learned Korean. So went to not the same exact school, but the same different buildings at the same school for 2 years for a language school. So yeah, shout out to Chris Pemberton. Anyway. So that's very cool. Do you think that some of the experiences you had in the military carried over to bodybuilding?
Yeah. just like any other aspect of your life, right? I mean, I think that question it requires a little bit of nuance to it, because I've been asked that before, and I would say whatever approach, that the way I approach bodybuilding now, I think I would have approached it without the military, just because that's what's already there. I mean, military enhance that, or maybe like streamline the approach a little bit, if that makes any sense. But in terms of nobody really gives a shit. Like, you have a job, you get it done. Like, it's literally that's the mentality. And if that's anything, that's just bodybuilding. I think, again, think about the post that I made. It's like, I didn't really put that in the caption because obviously people are very it's a very touchy. You don't want to offend anyone that's going through prep and feel attacked or some way. But like, nobody really gives a shit how hard it is. Like, you decide to do this to yourself. Nobody's forcing your hand. Nobody's saying, no, I want you to prep. No, you willingly decided to do this for yourself. So shut the fuck up and just get the job done. Like, it's like in a nicer way put out, just like that. So the military, again, I mean, you have a task. They don't care. You program in a way to think. You find a solution. Work the problem. Things like that. So, and I think also military, like, if you work the problem, you get to a problem. If you try to work the problem, you give it your all. It doesn't really work. You do like an after action report. You go back to the drawing board. Obviously, through a bodybuilder, you collect data. Okay, what worked, what didn't work, and you just go back to the drawing board and apply that again. So you just do, you won't go through the insanity approach, and just keep repeating the same shit over and over again. So I mean, with the military, definitely instilled that. So I mean, I wasn't. It's just like, I think the reason why I said, if I already had that before, is picture somebody that's super lazy. I'm probably aware of some people in the army that didn't really last long. It would just, the military can build you to be like a high character kind of person. But if you kind of just, you spend like, 18 years just, doing whatever, getting with a bunch of stuff, like you possibly are in a position to just get kicked out of the military also. But the point is, luckily, I'm very fortunate to have parents that just they bust their ass and work hard. They are the visual representation of what hard work looks like. So you don't really need to, like, nobody needs to like force that into you. It's something. Oh, cool, we gotta do this show. We gotta get this shit done. Like, that's
right.
The mindset. So.
Well, that makes sense. So yeah, I think this is where we might differ a little bit, in that I was a pretty lazy person. And then I joined the military, and I think what I realized, and this is very much the story of dodgeball, if you don't set high standards, then you never fail yourself. So for me, I was a little mini Vince Vaughn in my early stages of life, where I just rested on my laurels academically. I remember purposely trying to get into honors and AP classes because I knew it was easier to get a B there than an A in another class, but you'd get the little GPA boost. That was kind of my mentality. And then in the military, it was the first time I'd probably, maybe outside of a little bit of track and field in high school, where I'd actually pushed myself and been like, oh, actually, when I try hard, I succeed. And maybe and I built some self-efficacy. So I think what it really came down to, that resting on my laurels, was just fear of being inadequate, So there's really not an opportunity to let that manifest. Like you said, some people do in the military, but they kind of rest on their laurels, or they get kicked out, or they don't last. The military is great in that everyone gets exposed for being incapable in like the first few weeks. You're just some scared shitless 18-year-old most of the time. Some are older, being given impossible tasks purposefully. You fail, they yell at you, and then you get over it, and then you start to actually try hard, and you start to succeed, and then you come on the other side. So I think for me, it was maybe the first glimpse that, I can do some cool stuff. Like I excelled when I was, in the military at some of the physical stuff, and I was, reasonably good at my job. I got into a difficult job. So it was kind of the first impetus I had to push forward. But to me, it sounds like for you, where it differs, to go back to what I'm saying, is that you've had a really good model of hard work for a long time. It sounds like it was instilled in you by your parents, or at least modeled by your parents. Not that my parents didn't model hard work, for the record. I had some fantastic parents, working class. A barista and an ambulance driver. That's who I was born to, and in California. I'm gonna give my whole life story now. This will take 20 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, Sam, tell me about how your parents have influenced your work ethic and your experience there.
Um, First generation American. My parents. I mean, I was born in Nigeria, so I think I think one of the cool things I think Doris and I kind of share that sort of like brotherhood. He's first generation American. His mom is not from here. His mom has a thick Guyanese accent. My parents still my mom still has a thick like Nigerian accent. And there's a running joke amongst like Nigerians. That you only have the option of doing four things in your life in terms of like career, to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, and accountant. Anything outside of that, you're a failure. So it's to the point where or even most of the courage is like, I don't want to go to college. I want to try entrepreneur. Like literally they'll gather like the uncles and aunties like, no, I think he's lost his shit. So we need to sit down and have like almost like an intervention and like like knock some sense literally sometimes into him, like, no, you need education. So having that, it's almost like a Nigerian like a thin like a swag, like and also to the point where you know what's like on the other side of the world, like since, I mean, I was born there and I came to the state when I was maybe 16 or 17, 2001, it's all blurred now. Came here and knowing the kind of opportunities that I had, and so like the kind of opportunities that I have, I'm like, well, I mean, it's vast. So it's almost like it would be irresponsible of you to not make something out of yourself because you know what the alternative could have been. So having that sort of mentality, I mean, again, that's like dropping in a bank of like the shit. I mean, the kind of things I already had to work with. And then you have parents like, okay, they work their ass off to like, give you opportunities to do a lot of things. And watching my dad was a psychiatric nurse and he worked, I mean, he's going to go work his normal shift. And he used to work for this company called Nurse Finders. And they'll call you up like, hey, after he gets off from the shift, they call you. I'm like, hey, somebody called off. You want to come in? And literally, maybe like take like 30 minutes snooze or an hour snooze, and it's already back at the door working another 12-hour shift. And me waking up like 4 o'clock in the morning, packing us like breakfast, like oatmeal and eggs, which I used to hate oatmeal. I'm like, how do you eat this? One of my favorite things to eat right now. Go figure. And I mean, so watching that and watching my mom, go and put herself through school, like being our registered nurse. Working with like at a kids rehab center now. So I mean, it's kind of, I mean, if you don't make something out of yourself because you do have that example, I think not so exactly. I think I was Nick Bear released a video talking about his mom like passing or something, and he was talking about them like, I can relate to that wholeheartedly because you have the example of hard work. You don't really need to like try to work hard because literally you wake up in the morning, you see it. It's almost like by default you kind of just like, I'm not saying everybody that had a hardworking parents don't automatically fall into like that become like a hard worker, but I would say most people that have that sort of example generally falls into that sort of naturally just becomes something that they do, and if they don't do it, it's like something is off. So I mean, so to your question, watching, I mean, I had a front row seat to like see how you want to take care of your family, how well you want to work hard for for what you want, not just sit there, apply yourself. I mean, applying yourself there kind of took me a while to get to because I was like, oh, I can get like you. There were times where I feel like I can get a lot of stuff, but once you apply yourself and you like, wow, you see what you can actually truly capable of, and like, okay. There's something there, and it's almost like, well, you cannot help but to apply yourself and because you know what the outcome, I mean, it's going to be. So,
well, I tell you what, Sam, the that mindset applied to bodybuilding has been very apparent to me in your career, looking at your physique and also watching the way you interact with people. I remember way back, I want to say, the KC International Show 2014. I think Jeff Alberts won the overall.
I remember that show quite well. I would let you finish real quick, but I would say that was a show that kind of that flipped the switch with you a little bit. Yeah, that was.
I would say that that was what I feel like I noticed in you, because I remember you posting about that on Instagram, and being like, yeah, Jeff mopped everybody up. I have things to work on. Like it apparently seemed, I don't remember the post exactly. It's a long time ago, but I remember.
I remember.
Okay, well, good, because if I misquote, my apologies. But I think
You're pretty spot on. Like
okay, I'm getting the theme right. Yeah, I got the impression from you that that lit some kind of fire, and I don't think you rested on your laurels before that by any means. But I know that there are a lot of talented bodybuilders who do well. They win a pro card their first season, and then maybe they compete in a smaller organization or they do pretty well. But you look at them and I sometimes I think, man, if they could just act like they were the underdog, even though they're not, they could be not just a good bodybuilder, but an undefeatable bodybuilder. And I watched you, I think, over the years move closer and closer and closer to that. Like when I saw you compete, 2012, you placed second in the Orton Cup. Off camera, we were talking about that, and you described that as a loss, which I think is amazing, because typically when people place second in the pro world heavyweight division, they're primarily happy about that, and I'm sure you are happy about that. But I've definitely watched you where back then you had an incredible amount of muscularity, but you weren't necessarily as balanced as you are today, and you didn't achieve that same pristine level of conditioning and consistent hard look to your physique and peaking that you do now. And all due respect to Jeff Alberts, but since that 2014 showdown, when you've met him, you've come out on top, So I think it just speaks to the fact of how much you've improved your physique. I think your posing is better. You bring just as much, if not more, muscularity, and the conditioning is just pristine. So I've watched you apply that same work ethic. At least that's what it looks like from the outside, and be rewarded for it.
And since I'm a fan of the show, and I know how you guys used to like to shoot back compliments against each other. Like you give a compliment, it's like no. But let me tell you this. So I'm going to shoot that back to you and the 3DMJ fan. The reason I'm going to shoot that back was I actually worked with Alberto for that show. And I remember correctly when when I reached out to him, like, bro, like, hey, I think I placed second at the North American show, which I thought I should have won, but again, I'm like, okay. I thought I look at pictures now, I'm like, damn, I love that look, but I was like, full. I could be a tad bit, more, a lot crispier. And I'm like, okay. I was doing my own thing at the time with the help of Doris, obviously just bouncing, being like the second eye, like, hey, bro, like, what do you think? And of course, it's nice to have somebody that's very candid, that's gonna be straight up with you, like, oh, you like shit, bro. Like, we need to like speed this thing up. The guy from Love, anyone that will keep you 100 with me. And I reached out to Alberto, and Alberto was like, why the fuck are you asking me to like coach you? Like, I mean, which I carry now. The way you approached the conversation that we had, when it's somebody that I think is like has a good physique and wants to work with me, I'm like, well, what can I do for you that you aren't already doing? And I think just his approach to training, his approach to nutrition, like I think I was the most challenged I've ever been in terms of like during contest prep and in terms of like just not thinking outside the box, but in terms of programming. The nuance. I mean, I learned a lot from working with him for that show, and but yeah, and come full circle that I lost the show because obviously we were like in the same class. It was like a different class, and I think those were the days. And going back and watching that show, I mean, it's almost like wow, there's different levels to this shit. Like wow, like if a guy like him can literally win the show and win overall too, and maybe I was coming to the show with the notion of like, oh yeah, the bigger you are, the biggest guys, always win. No, the biggest guy did not win that show. The smallest guy, possibly was the smallest guy. I think he won the whole show. But now, open my eyes to obviously learn a little bit more about natural bodybuilding because they, some size with better conditioning will always win over like just mass with like shitty conditioning, and so not chase the number game. Again, a lot of I can write pages on things I learned from that show. I just thought it was like kind of going back, working with Alberta for that show. And, I think that, understanding, there's levels like training, there's levels of nutrition, there's levels to like fine tuning certain things. Data matters, which I always say like collect as much data. as I did before I started working Alberto. And I'm like, okay. So that literally, like the way I coach, the way I train myself, the way I prep, that definitely flipped that like 180. So
Yeah, it's certainly. I think it was apparent. I think, and since then you have been killing it. So we've talked about it a little. We've hinted at a few shows you've done over the years, but yeah. So your competitive resume is very impressive. I think probably the highlights that are worth pointing out is that you were the 2017 IPE World Champ, like I mentioned. So it definitely culminated. And for those who don't know, the IFPA, although there's natural bodybuilding is a mess. So
the great IFBA.
yes, the IFPA was basically became the IPE Pro Division sort of today. So yeah, you won what used to be sort of the Orton Cup, but now it's the IPE World Championships. I think that the Orton Cup's still around though. But
yeah, the Orton Cup is like on the OCB side now.
that's right. It's hard to keep up, folks. Natural bodybuilding, it's we're all drama kings and queens. But
if only we can do this.
Yeah, one day.
That would I don't think that would ever happen.
No, I don't either. I was being very nice.
Too many people with a lot of egos. Let's put it that way.
That's right. I actually want to. I think the win for natural bodybuilding is when we get to 100 different acronyms. When we are 100 federations strong, that's when I know that we've made it. And then we can boast about having more federations for a single sport than any other. So yeah, that's the crown. Yeah, that's going to be the win for us, Sam. So, but yeah, you've also 2017 and 2019 placed second at WBF Worlds, two very, very good competitors, Sam Watt, and then also the overall winner in 2019, Kendall. So yeah, you've got a fantastic resume. You are among the best natural bodybuilders in the game at the moment. Actually, you're out of the game now. You're retired. Never going to see if you can beat me, but it is what it is. So in all seriousness, I just so people know who we're talking to here. You have quite the competitive resume. You hinted at that you've learned a lot of things and that just from that 2014 show, you could write pages about it. What are some of the things that you feel have been most influential to your progression and success over the years? That could be training, nutrition, mindset, just anything that you feel has been a linchpin.
So, I mean, again, something for me, and I think something I see a lot of people do, which is quite common nowadays, is which I mean, I personally, I take time off when I mean, I don't compete year to year, but I think a lot of people do compete year to year. And I think I was just thinking about this recently. I was going to make a post, but I try to make a post, you forget about it because you got all the important things going on. I was going to use two examples of two clients I'm working with right now, Nathan Hatley and Austin Phillips. Austin Phillips is nothing but a soaking wet 145-pound dude. When you see him, I try to play this. I like to play this game on IG, like guess the weight. Obviously, we all look big, standing by ourselves. But a lot of like 170. I'm like, nah, it's 148 on a good day. And we've been prepping together for the last maybe 5 years or so. And yes, we take some time off. Like a year and a half here and there. But due to COVID, we were forced to take like a longer time off. And hands down, this has been the easiest prep in terms of like just getting them there. Like not a lot of changes that needs to be made. It's just like cruising. Same thing went for Nathan because we took the time off and we already surpassed the low that he was in eating more food just because we obviously put on invest a lot of time in the off season, improving season, improve a lot, add a decent amount of lean tissue mass in the last few years or so. And again, easier prep. So the first thing I would always tell people, like, take the time off, like to actually improve. And I tell people because you feel good doesn't mean you feel good, right? And that's from a surface level, like, oh yeah, you packed on, your rebound weight, you feel good again, maybe your hunger level is not really there anymore. Because you feel good doesn't mean, oh yeah, everything is good. I mean, blood work can reveal some underlying factors there that you probably don't know. So first thing I'll tell anyone is take the time off to actually improve. Don't just keep showing up over and over again. You see people compete like 1 year and don't want to do it again next year. I'm like, how? I mean, and especially if you have a long prep, like the longer prep you have, possibly the longer it's going to take you time to, get back to being close to being 100%, right? And then you start being possibly in a position to actually make some improvement. Then you think about, actually prepping you pull that together, you think about a year and a half, 2 years before you prep again. But again, I understand a lot of people do fitness now just for business. You have to be there, you have to be shredded, you have to be lean. I'm not a huge fan of main gaining at all. Or, no, like the best position you can ever be is to be in a surplus. Give your body enough opportunity for your body to actually make those improvements instead of quote unquote, I just want to see some six pack. Like, no. After everything is all said, I mean, mentality, continuous improvement has got to be the forefront of everything, right? In personal life and in bodybuilding, like you need to make sure you put yourself in a position to just continuously improve. And I think if that's the forefront of all your goals, like it will be easier to say, oh no, I'm not going to step on stage next year because I know I need to improve, and I know for me to do that, I need to take time off and actually invest the time in, and putting the time together. Because nowadays, I mean, yes, I think most people, I would say the changes for me at that time was like, just, tracking my volume, tracking training, and not being, a slave to a specific movement, which guilty of that for like years. I'm like, oh, squat, I got a barbell squat. I got to do it. I mean, like, but my body's like, no, I don't think so. We're not working like that anymore. My QL is like, hey, buddy, like I'm still fucked up over here. So find the other movement that actually give me the most stimulus to fatigue. Game changer for me. The hack squats. Love machine more than I think. But which I think the machine part. I think you realize that the older you get. I feel like for a lot of people, like that's your best friend. If I knew that maybe when I was younger, I mean, maybe I would have, who knows what, I could have done then. So I think those would be like the three, like, key, like soft, like, points I would say definitely affected the way and impacted the way I look now in the last few years.
Yeah, I think those are actually three things that I definitely identify with. The easiest prep I've had was this 2019 one, and my most successful, where I got in the best condition. And it was most consistent. And the last time I prepped was 2011. So I had obviously a huge amount of time off. And I think you're you're the poster boy for your own like statements there. The kind of discipline I think people don't understand that it takes to win a world championship in 2017, and then to have the pressure of everyone going like, oh, you got to defend the title, and you're like, nah, see you in 2019. That's impressive. So which years did you take off? I know we talked about you competing in 2009. We talked about 2014. We talked about 2017, 2019. So which years did you not compete? What was your longest stint of time that you took off?
After my first, I thought when I got my pro card, I think that was the longest time I took it, just because I realized. Yeah, I think I got my pro card, and what gave me that realization in 2009. I didn't compete until I think my first year was not till 2012, I believe.
Yeah, so 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and the reason why that was because I had front row seat. I watched Doris, obviously, which is like light years above where I was at the time. I mean, Doris was competing with the likes of like Cleveland Thomas on stage,
Yep.
In which I'm like, wow, this is the pro levels. I'm like, okay, all right. And I will also note that at the time, I was like, wow, I'm interested in bodybuilding, but the fire wasn't really like lit until like I watched like Doris go through the process, and like, well, I mean, just how. I mean, Doris is I'm fanboying a little bit here, but I mean, he's a different kind of breed. Like when you train with somebody, like there's a switch there that I just trains with. It's not like the bro, like rah rah rah, but I mean, very, very psychological in a way. Like he's a practitioner. Let me just put it that way. Exactly. Like you can just I'm just thinking is like grab his notepad and just like so I mean, his brain is always on. So watching somebody go through that process definitely kind of just, give you like another perspective, like, wow, like there's a different level to this. And watching him compete against like likes of Cleveland Thomas on stage, I'm like, I do not belong on that stage. And to your point, of like, placing second and taking that as a loss, like no, I'm a competitive guy. I want to win. Like anything other than a win is a loss. Like that's how I look at it. Now I don't want to place top 5. I don't want to place top 2. I want to win. And and if I don't win, it's not gonna be like, oh my God, I'll throw my hands up, like what if the whole world's against me? No, because I think the benefit is like again, this might just kind of correlate to life too. You always gotta look intrinsically, right? Because again, back to it's easier for you to look inward to any sort of problem that you have. If you have any sort of, if you got hit by a car, it might be somebody's fault, but like, I'm always going to look in myself, what could I have done to make myself, to make that situation not happen in the first place? I think doing that, it kind of gives you the power too, right? Gives the power to, you don't feel like, oh my God, this person did this to me kind of thing. Like, I need to, work on that. So I think it puts in a position like, almost give you the control to like fix whatever it's wrong. Instead of like, you know what? I think that person, that's his fault, or that's that person's fault. So, but my point is, going through that process, I'm looking at it on stage and I'm like, no, like I need some time off to definitely improve, to work on my craft, to get better. And I think 3 years is like the longest one time. But after that, I usually take like a year and a half or so. And my decision is always like, okay, I might, you have to decide if you're ready to compete mentally, or physically even. Like, how good was my health? It was like, okay, like, am I going to show up looking the same way that I, did last time? And as a natural athlete, sometimes you just don't know until you like, strip all the fat off. I'm like, you don't look too bad, And or it could be like maybe different peaking style you want to try, or something different you want to do from data that you gathered. Like, if I could have like manipulated this a little bit, I could have made the changes, or maybe look a certain way that I haven't looked before. So, but yeah.
No, I love that, Omar. I want to pitch something over to you that I was noticing and thinking about, is that in a lot of the very high level athletes, or not even necessarily elite, but people who are very seasoned and still getting after it and still improving, who are also competitive, because not all of them necessarily really carry that same kind of focus on winning that you do, Sam. Many do, but I think for the people who are at high level and competitive and stay in it and keep progressing, they have the maturity to be competitive. And I think a lot of people don't have the responsibility to be competitive because they do the exact opposite of what Sam said. They go for the win, they're all about it, and when they don't achieve it or they fall short, they do throw their hands up, they do blame other people, and they have a very difficult time taking the ego hit and then getting to work. There's a huge lag time where they're just trying to deal with the emotional trauma of, I invested all this into being the best, it was my everything to me, and then I fell short and my world's collapsed. While I think it is the champions who are competitive, who are able to hold that while still maintaining responsibility, balance, and priorities. And I think that's somewhat of a rarity, I would say. I don't know if is that something you've observed, Omar?
Man, we're talking about fragility versus robustness in the face of adversity. Like, how does one respond? Because it is interesting, Eric, to your point, that all too often when things are going well, you think you're applying yourself 100%. You certainly are, but you haven't been tested with that loss, kind of similar to what maybe you guys were alluding to when you were serving, where you think, okay, I'm given a task, I'm going to do it. They give you an L. Like, you have to face the L to learn how to process that and deal with that. And some people, they've never been tested in that capacity, not necessarily to give their best, but what happens when the outcome isn't what they desire. Man, I've actually witnessed that. So I will say, and this is no shade because it's just the little space that I'm in with the powerlifting boys and girls, that if you have a natural affinity, so you pick it up and, you just are making that progress, you see objectively. So I think something with powerlifting that's interesting, you can see the number. So whatever, it's a 1,600 pound total. So you know what has to happen roughly, like when you compete, like maybe, you have other competitors to win, right? So you have that, a landmark, someone else comes, blows you out of the water, and all of a sudden the whole narrative just got changed because you thought you were entering to be number one and now you're number two or number three. Wow, what do you have to do? And I've noticed that I think there's a difference between achieving proficiency and then a difference between an outcome not going your way and then having that perspective to look inwardly to see what necessarily needs to be changed, or if it's possible, maybe to what Sam was also alluding to go to another level then, where you thought you were operating. Because one of the other things I liked, Eric, that Sam said, and I read it in one of the IG posts, is not the myth of the hardcore, but the idea that it's not this performative aspect that I'm all about this. Like, there's that guy, not to bring up a particular incident, but it was on social media, went viral, where someone was like yelling at a guy who walked. Hey, Eric, do you know who I'm talking about?
Come on, bro. Don't do the, don't do it in front of me, guys. Come on, guys.
Right? It's like, and that's, you think it's almost like you're convincing yourself of your, okay? Get the fuck out of here. And like, meanwhile, he steps off of the hack
squatting. You're doing partial hack squat reps, bro.
and not to insult like the man's height or say anything to him, but when he gets off of the hack squat, you're like, oh, that's all your height, like you're gonna come at the guy where he's like, hey bro, like he goes up. But to the point is that you may think that you're operating on all cylinders firing, but sometimes having that perspective shift and what you're going to do when you have that failure can really show the level of someone's character. So I love to hear things like that. Absolutely.
And I'll touch on something real quick. I mean, also, I don't want to like come across like oh, like it's something that I've always had or whatnot. Like I remember like being like bitter. And I always tell any of my clients like ideally if it's your first show, I would recommend not travel to it. Find a local show you can go to just because the stress of traveling. This is a funny story which I'm not sure if my wife would love me sharing about that, but she doesn't like to like book flights. Like no, it's too stressful. You do it. I don't want to book the wrong thing or whatever. So this time she's like, nah, you book it. So the first show was the Pro Bowl, which was used to be in Virginia, and first time I competed in the likes of Donovan Strong, massive. Think about your first pro show, and you step on stage, and when you step in, you compete against that guy. I'm like, again, reminder, there's a levels to this shit, boy. Like keep working. And so she booked the flight. So looking to fly to Virginia. She booked the flight to DC. So DC, Virginia, not too far from each other. I'm not to my Canadian brother. And it's literally maybe like get a car like an hour, maybe like an hour 20, an hour 30-minute drive, not too bad at all. Got in the car. It will be the day. The show was on Saturday, obviously, and we flew in on Friday. I'm like, oh yeah, get in the morning, like go shopping, get all the food that I need. Everything will be perfect. Nothing was perfect that day. Flew into DC. I think we realized we like flying to DC like on that day, and I'm like, oh, we're not going to Virginia. I mean, it's okay. Book a fly. This is back in 2012. Not as tech savvy as a lot of things now. Got a car. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, quick drive. It took us 6 hours to drive an hour and a half because it was a massive accident on the road. And like trying to call these people like, hey, I got a polygraph at like noon. I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to make it. And but they heard like a lot of people were commuting in, so they pushed that out a little bit. And knocked those three show. Those three. I had no food with me. I was stuck in the car. The day before the show, when it's supposed to be like, oh, low stress, just chill. Like, I was like, I'm deep down, I was trying to be the calm one. I was like, she was like, fuck, like, feeling bad. I'm like, no. Again, which I think the way I approach a lot of things in life also is like, okay, what I can control, what I cannot control. If I can control it, literally out of my other side. Like it's that simple. Like it's a simple fact of life. Like I don't want to add another stress that doesn't need to be added if I don't need to add stress. And anyways, fast forward, we got there like around 6:30. From like noon, and got a polygraph done. Went to Walmart, bought some groceries that I needed. I thought I looked decent. I got third in that show. Mike, I forgot his last name. Mike won the show. Donovan got second. I think Donovan was as massive as he is. I think he was like maybe a tad bit off. And I wanted to win that show. Like even though I knew as you posing okay, I think I belong here. And so after losing the show, I felt some type of way. Like I was like a little bit short a little bit. Like I should have at least placed maybe second or something like that. And I really remember carrots and peanut butter never tasted so good. Like I was driving back to DC with my wife, and I was just like some melt peanut butter. I'm like, man, it's like I was like, it's like, how dare you kind of thing. And so it wasn't, and obviously you have time to steam cool off a little bit on the drive. That actually took an hour and 30 minutes back to DC because we actually visited one of our friends there that worked at the White House at the time. But no, just the point is it's not something that, oh yeah, I'm like this perfect. That always have the mentality. It's just something that you have to kind of just work through. And if you take enough L's, you find a way to kind of look for ways to handle them better and trying to find something good out of those quote unquote not so good situations.
No, absolutely. I think to both your and Omar's points is you need to have those moments of adversity, small and large and medium, to build to be able to handle the next. And I think when people take on goals that are so huge and put themselves in a position where it's like, I want to be the best and nothing else will make me satisfied, if they don't have the maturity, and I would say the experience, which is what your point is, Sam, it doesn't just happen. Like, it's not just an intrinsic quality. If they don't have the emotional maturity and experience to be able to fail at something that means so much to them so they can come back, they probably don't have the responsibility or maturity, in my opinion, to be that competitive. Like, hey man, you really haven't earned, like, I think this is something I see in a lot of people who they compete for the first time, like, I want to win my pro card. And I go, that's great. And you might even win it in your first time, but you haven't really earned the right to set that as a goal yet. And not because you haven't, quote unquote, paid your dues, you haven't done 5 shows. It's just that you don't even know what the bodybuilding prep process is like. You don't know what it's like to get out there and fail or not place as well or get stuck in traffic for 6 hours and it ruins your peak or whatever, all the little things that will happen. And maybe, you know, they've been thrown a lot of curveballs in life, but it's pretty specific to bodybuilding to have to kind of just understand the insanity of it and where your headset's at. And if you haven't gone through that, if you haven't been through the grinder, you're gonna not, it's gonna come out sideways when you don't achieve your goal. And what I think when I'm listening to you, Sam, is that your mindset is very adaptive. And what I mean by that is that it is conducive to you being better. Like when you talk about how you just discard anything that is not within your locus of control, and that you take the loss, you deal with, you know, where you're at, you know, it takes you an hour and a half on a drive or something like that, or a few days, you stew on it and then you come back. The reality is that any time wasted on shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or kicking the can, or being frustrated, or talking about politics, that's time that is an opportunity cost taken away from getting back to the drawing board and taking action and trying to help yourself and to figure out what you could do better next time. So when I listen to you describe all that, it is no surprise that you are where you are, in my opinion, and not just, he's a pretty good bodybuilder and he's been pretty good since 2009, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think all due credit, my friend. I think you've done a very good job. To touch on the last point you said about not putting a certain movement on a pedestal, like the squat, for example, that's also something Omar and I have talked a lot about this. Omar would share his own personal experience with trying to get bigger legs when he had a very heavy barbell bias. It wasn't that successful, but it was great for getting a hernia. And for actually growing his legs, he's found, you know, like trying different things. And the same thing for me. I didn't actually try this by choice. I was forced into it from having bilateral hip surgery and not being able to squat for a while, both leading up to the surgery for a couple of years and then in the years afterwards. And I saw that I really improved my legs from, you know, taking some of the powerlifting movements off the pedestal and just thinking about what's best for my body. And I think while that seems small, like exercise selection, even in my strength training pyramid, it's like, you know, it's midway up, like, whatever stimulates the muscle. But I think people forget, like, the things we get so attached to aren't always that great for stimulating the muscle at the cost of fatigue or joint pain. So that's a really good one. And I didn't leave it. I just let that hang. I didn't say, Omar, Sam, your thoughts or anything. I just
period.
Hanging segue there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mic drop, Eric. That's a mic drop moment. I was going to say that as it relates to that, I think we kind of want the best of all possible worlds, meaning that you could do the squat. You could really, so we both, I think all 3 of us, like to your point, Sam, when you're talking about your QL, where we do have maybe a barbell bias or just a movement we enjoy doing. And as an example, the dividends as it relates to strength are quite high when I squat frequently. So I am achieving something, but I'm not achieving both things at the same time. It's a delicate balancing act between handling the volume, intensity, and frequency with the squat to progress on it as an actual movement and then deriving actually a hypertrophic response. And I think sometimes when people hear those things where we often might have almost a reductionist mindset because there's an elegance and simplicity where it's like, you want to get bigger legs, just squat. And someone hears something slightly contrary to that. It's like, well, wait a minute. You might not have to squat in order to get big legs. And actually, it might not be the best possible path to do the majority of your leg development via squats. Like there might be other avenues. And then someone hears that, they're like, well, wait a minute, what are you trying to say? It's like, well, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And occasionally it takes a FAI surgery, it takes an undiagnosed hernia, it takes some QL flare-ups where you basically, your ass gets sat out. And that actually is maybe the one aspect of lifting I can relate to, meaning that I'm not going to call it because it's a minor form of adversity, but basically getting sat out, not your own choice, right? So it's not something that you want to do, and then you have to reflect and develop a new game plan. And the first few times
I'll put in the corner.
And nobody puts baby in the corner. and unfortunately, what happens is I'll say for myself, I ignored it. Where I was like, yeah, well, we'll just, yeah, that's an anomaly, right? Because pain, once again, it's not indicative of necessarily anything. These signals are all confusing. We're just going to keep squatting. Like, this is just something that happened by almost happenstance. That, yeah, I was stressed out. I'm sure it's not going to happen again. So it's like you're not deviating from the path because you have your path towards the goal. So it takes a few times. It takes your mom having to help you get up in the middle of the night to use the washroom, where you're so emasculated at that point where you realize, all right, I think I'm doing this wrong. Like, this is the point where this is the come to Jesus moment. So yeah, man.
It's quite. I mean, and now, I mean, I'm wondering, like, you wonder, like, okay, I mean, out of the years that you could have spent just like, just making all the games using, like, I mean, like press, hack squat, Smith machine, for instance, what could have been done. So again, another point is, like, don't be a slave to the machine, man. Like, if it doesn't drive you, I mean, serve you well. By a lot more are slave to the machine just based on their ignorance too, by the way. So it's like, you don't know better because somebody told you, like, the only way to grow big legs is by squatting. So
yeah, and I think people just don't realize how much the social pressure, it still is there, and how much it was. I remember on the bodybuilding.com forums, mid 2000s, late 2000s, somewhere in there, Bob Ciccarello, who is IFBB pro, he was active in the late 90s and then also the 2000s. I don't know if he's still active now. I think he just acts as a host and kind of like athletes rep. But I remember him posting some workout videos and saying he squatted and he was doing hack squats, or just the realization that his leg days didn't include barbell back squats. And he got so much flack on the forums. And people were just like, this isn't a leg day. You'd have so much better legs if you were to squat. How could you do, I'm surprised he kept posting. And just the amount of flack he got for that, I thought was ridiculous. So
if it's not the IBB stabbing, you don't do. There's an IBB way of doing things, and there is a scientific way of doing things. So if you're not doing the IBB way, like, I mean, bro, like, I think it's almost like you shoot a lot of people's dream down, like, bro, but I thought, like, that's what it's about. It's like, no, it's not. So
haven't paid your dues. I do remember that. So in my little space, so on YouTube, where I was a reductionist early on, because the pendulum was on the opposite side, where there's a lot of people, let's say, that were more desiring just simply building muscle. And so things like barbell movements, there was a bias against barbell movements on YouTube. Like, why are you going to deadlift? You're going to snap your shit up. Like, oh, you're squatting. Like, you're squatting for your ego. Like, these were incredibly common occurrences in 2009, 10, 11, up into maybe 2012. So my almost reactionary position, because I enjoyed doing those, I enjoyed getting stronger, was I was the person, I was once again like, oh, squat, like, yeah, you should squat. Like, I was that guy. There probably is a video of me saying that shit, or everyone should be deadlifting. It's like that strongman competitor. If you're not deadlifting, you don't feel alive. Like, I've said shit like that probably.
Yep. And then the Paralympic powerlifters, like, that's really not a fair statement. So
that's maturity, luckily.
Yeah. Well, we've all said things we regret. That's okay.
I think speaking of things you regret, that's not a good segue at all. And I was just like, the point of, like, changing your point of view. Again, the last video that you do with Jeff Nippert is like, people not having that open mindedness. Like, you know what? Taking back, like, I said this things. I mean, I've then seen the other side of something I said that I think might not be true. I think a lot of us are very, like, we want to be, wrong. We want to be right rather than be wrong. There's, like, some sort of, like, emotional, attachment to it. Like, oh my God, how dare I be wrong? I am the aficionado of everything, so I must be right the whole time. Like, the saying that I'm glad that I'm not right all the time. I want to be wrong actually, because I think it's an opportunity to go back to the drawing board and trying to learn something new, right? So, I don't know it all. I know enough. That's why I keep telling people, like, if I don't know the answer, I would definitely look for. I mean, it's an opportunity for me to dig in and try to learn something about that, and hopefully give you that, accurate information. I think a lot of people like take back and ask me, like, I don't know.
Yep.
I just don't. I'm not going to speak on it because I just don't know. And obviously with Instagram, you have to like DM me asking all this question, like, I don't know. Or if I know, like some sort of like way of like pointing you to the direction of something you can read up yourself, which a lot of people don't do because they want everything to be a blanket statement. They want it to be black and white. Tell me this, nothing else. I don't want to hear it. I'm like, sorry, I can't help you. I just don't know. So.
Sam, you're speaking so much truth. You're making the birds literally sing. I think I love it, and I think this is actually a perfect segue. One of the last things, maybe next things, we'll see where this goes, that I want to talk about is how, in my experience, I think being a bodybuilding competitor who eventually realized that I needed to not blame politics, not be focused on the external, but be focused internally, like you said, and use each time I didn't place as well or show up as well as I wanted to as an opportunity to learn. I think it made me a better scientist and coach, because those are the same ways that we pursue truth, like you just said. So this is a perfect segue to, I want to ask you, how long have you been coaching now? Because you are a coach with RP. You work with a lot of competitors. You mentioned you've got some people you've been working with for like 5 years now with that same client. How long have you been coaching, and how would you say that coaching has influenced you as a competitor? Because I'll speak for myself that I have found I've become a better bodybuilder as a coach, because practicing being objective and making decisions and seeing those connections and seeing just the diversity of experiences has made me less attached to certain ideologies or ideas, and just seeing how many different things can work, and just to kind of have that repeated experience has made me more willing to be open-minded, like you said, in my own training and nutrition as a bodybuilder.
Coaching, I've been coaching for maybe I want to say 10 years or so.
Nice.
Coaching myself, coaching other people, but not on like the scale that I'm doing it now. Again, because I've always been a corporate guy. I'm still a corporate guy, and that seemed that people are like, I mean, that's why I like to make it clear, like the things I'm doing is not because I am quote unquote fitspo or like I'm fit, I mean, within the fitness industry. I can do the things I'm doing because I want to do them. I make time to do them. So, but just like fitness, I mean, I think you hit the nail around the head. Like it gives me level of appreciation a little bit, and respect also, just because you see how hard other people are grinding. People that compete for the right reason sometimes kind of just gives you this newfound respect and this bright light of like, wow, like the people actually out there that actually do for the right reason. And again, also allows me to like when it's like I was like it's almost like, I mean, you get the opportunity to like communicate and like, hey, let's try something new, or an opportunity to almost like a not a scientist, but like like your clients are not your guinea pig in a way, but it's like hey, it's rooted in like in scientific reasoning, but like let's try this. So that's the opportunity, just like and when it works, I'm like, holy shit, like this fucking worked. And not like you weren't sure it was gonna work, like you knew it was gonna work, but when it actually works, like it's almost like giddy. The way that feeling is like, I was watching my daughter the other day, and just the ability to like learn new words. I feel like I'm jealous of that a little bit, just because as the older you are, like the idea of like the excitement of like, oh wow, like like she said something new and she just keeps saying it over and over and over again. Like as an adult, like we don't really have that much opportunity, or we don't put ourselves in that opportunity to want to learn something new. So working with clients allow me to learn something new, because again, you learn like the body is just different. Like or for client A, it's not going to work for client B, and sometimes I take a little bit of time to figure that out. And it's why you don't take on clients that's like, hey, I'm like 8 weeks out from a show. Can you like I'm like, not enough times to even know how you're going to react to these protocols. We can try for the first time, but with the potential of doing some more work maybe in the future, maybe. But overall, I mean, coaching has definitely allowed me to again work with some of the. I'll use my client Austin, for instance. I've never met like another like machine in a way. I call him machine because he's like so robotic in a way he does things. And I will also put that the reason why he's like that is because he's been he's been a gymnast since he was like 6 years old, like training like Russia, like competitive. So the discipline is not like it's like bro, tell me to jump, I'll jump. Like dude, like tell me like a grain of salt. Like he's like that meticulous about how. And I'm meticulous. I say like I'm casual about the way I approach it too. So I'm like, you don't have to be uptight a little bit. Like relax, can let the guard down. But just watching somebody like that, so dedicated, disciplined, definitely gives me an opportunity to up my game. So when you have clients like that, like one of those like clients that just like a client, like the coach's client, like it's like, bro, it's just elevate your game. You want to do well. You want them to do well. You want to put yourself in a position, like even like go in your bag a little bit to do more research and to make sure you put them in the right situation to excel. And I mean, over the years, I've definitely found myself being very emotionally invested, like in my clients, and that's one of the reasons why I actually pull back on coaching. Just like this is too stressful because I mean, especially for bodybuilding, is so like subjective. Like somebody might wake up one day like, oh, I like your look, or I don't like your look, or whatever. I mean, it's and how hard to work at something, and and I try to like prepare them for those like situations like, hey, it's not like track or it's not like powerlifting where you lift it or you don't. Like it's that simple. Sometimes powerlifting can be a little subjective because you didn't turn a full extension or you didn't hit depth. Like, well, no, that was depth. But the error of missing missing the mark is like it's not as big as what bodybuilding is. So just find myself having. I mean, I think again another piece that I want to mention that definitely has helped me with like the emotion intelligence aspect of things, which I think is quite important for like a lot of coaches too, especially working with like a female client, for instance. I not to be sexist, but I feel female. I mean, especially working with like a male coach, you have to learn how to like kind of just deliver your message a little bit, and like in a way that's not gonna be constructive in a way. I understand like so. It's quite common in IFBB just because I have clients that came from like an IFBB coach that's cookie cutter, that puts them on 900 calories a day and doing 2-3 hours of cardio per day, and then drops the client because she's not getting result. Like, of course she's not getting result. Like, well, I mean, what does you want to do? What does you want to do like from here on out? And did I make any changes at all? Or drops the girl as a client because quote unquote you're lying to me. You're just not eating what I told you to eat. And I watching that I'm like, and making her feel like she's the person in the wrong here, and telling like I was like, no, you lie. I mean, emotional attack, attacking that person, which is it happens quite a lot because I hear a lot of those like horror stories from clients that come from like an IV quote unquote IV coach, guru coach, to other coaches. So, but understanding we can went to like kind of have like come to Jesus moment, like that male or female. And one of my clients, Brandon Jones, would tell you about that thing. We had the moment like I was like, I called Barrick at him like, hey, Barrick has been doing it longer than I am. Like, I just want to bounce an idea of like, I feel like this client's like, it's not really getting it. Like, like, I mean, Brandon Jones, like, it's okay. We've been talking about it, but I've talked about it on Instagram. So it's not like, I got to get his permission to talk about this position. It would tester it too, because he was a personal trainer and it was just not doing the things that I wanted to do, like, or he should be doing, like, to get the result I was trying to get. And it was like pushing me, like, I need to be like attached to like a certain weight on stage. I'm like, no. I'm like, these are the guys that show up to shows like you want to do, and you think at that weight this is what you're gonna look like. And to that point, you have to be pragmatic in a way, like, okay, listen, we have time. We get to the weight that you want to get to, you want to step on stage, and we'll look at the picture that you think you can bring to the stage and compare to other pictures of people that have done in the past, and tell me if those two look the same. Of course, we got there and it's like, yeah, you're right. So we had to like, no, we need to have like another 15 pounds to even like be competitive at all. Luckily, he actually took the advice and went on to win his IP pro card at Pro International. So to the point is like, having like that, emotional intelligence, like that come to Jesus moment or conversation, like, listen, we're fucking up. Like, again, it depends on the way you're going to have the conversation with client A is not the way you're going to have the conversation with client B, because they're all different. the way they receive that information is going to be different. We all accept or communicate in a different way. So being a coach definitely like gives you the opportunity to like, you know, work with different people and communicate differently with like a lot of people. Again, which I mean, I think is a life skill too, obviously. So, but yeah.
Oh, 100%. Like the facts over feelings crowd, even when I agree with what they say, I'm like, you must struggle in life. Like if you think you can just say facts and that everyone should have no emotional response regardless of their prior education, understanding, or whether they agree with you or have the same values, and you don't know how to tailor your message or read someone or talk to them, like that must be difficult, you know? Like so I think, yeah.
So I also segue, like, you know, I'll give an example of like a client that I was working with. I mean, she has, you know, it's almost, I mean, anxiety, like gym anxiety, like, you know, I mean, literally like gym gives her anxiety. And this is somebody that's powerlifted before, that's, you know, compete like at a high level of powerlifting. And she just like, you know, kind of, you know, had let go a little bit and just want to like get back. And having that knowledge in the background, you know, allows me to give a little leeway and, you know, maybe put some processes in place. And, you know, from a feedback, she was appreciative that I understand her, you know, a situation. And from feedback, I understand like she's got coaches that didn't really deal with that in the right way. Kind of just like, you know, no, you're just not doing the right thing. But I'm like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. It's from a psychological, you know, point of view, not just, you know, you need to check box X, Y, and Z. If you're not doing it, you just don't want it bad enough, you know. And I'm thinking, put that into the box of just learning how to talk to people, period, or how to communicate your message, or how that person can receive that message, not just because of the way you want to get the message out to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And this ties into what we said about, you know, humility and like being okay with not knowing what you don't know. And one thing none of us know is the experience of living as someone else. You know, we only know our own perspective. So I think that's those are all very wise words, Sam. And I think I can tell just by the way you talk that you're a high quality coach. You've got years of experience. You've done walk the walk as well. Omar, what I want to do next is I want to ask the important bodybuilding fan questions, because that's the thing I know about Sam is he's not just a competitor, he's also a fan of the sport. So who do you think is the best male natural bodybuilder in the game right now?
Okay. We're going to put me in a hot spot here. Oh,
yeah.
My God. I don't know.
Better lose some friends.
Well, here, I can ask it in a different way. How about this? Babacar, Kendall, and Doug Miller get on stage. Who's taking the title at their best that we've seen thus far?
That is a tough one. That's why I'm not a judge. That's why I'm not a judge of shows. I mean, I think I tried judging once. This is me like stalling, by the way. I tried to judge once. I'm like, yeah, this is not for me. Like, no, it's too stressful. Man. I mean, I have seen Doug compete in person. So at Jordan, 2012 when you won. And man is just a freak, man. I mean, I don't think nobody can touch him. Nobody can touch Doug. And I'll second that with Babacar there. And luckily, I've seen him in person too. That dude's just another freak by himself. I think he can be beat though. I mean, if you slip up, he can definitely be beat. Dan Kendall, because he's beat Kendall before in overalls. So that'll be my 1, 2, 3 right there. Thank you for giving that a little out.
No worries. Yeah, no, I think that's an easier one.
I was like, yes, send it. He's about to lose friends.
Controversy. We're gonna have the next 20 episodes. We got something to talk about here now.
You're the messy one.
Yep. You know, and I actually would place them in the same way you did. And the interesting thing though about bodybuilding is there's a difference between who has your favorite physique or what physique you like and who you think would win objectively. Because personally, out of those 3 physiques, my favorite physique is actually Kendall's, because I love his small waist. I love his muscle shape. I love the way his waist tapers into his quads. But I do think he would have a very difficult time in that lineup because those guys are just freaks.
I could not agree with you more. His physique is, I mean, I think he's supposed to I competed with the guy, you know, I saw some shots. I'm like, I could have taken that shot. You know, you always do your, I mean, it's, that's another thing I like about bodybuilding is because I don't really try to invest like too much time into whoever's going to show up, but sometimes you do your homework. Like you know some shots that you can win and some shots you can like manipulate certain things to look a certain way to, to obviously the reason why you practice posing is to highlight your good side and hide your flaws, which I think I do extremely well. Not to like toot my own horn, because I think a lot of people give me more credit than I deserve. I don't think my physique is on that, like level. I just think I know how to hide my shit well. I would definitely I like Kendall's physique better, just like the small waist, just like the wide shoulders. And another guy that's out there that Alberta and I talked about, because I had a client compete at Worlds when I was like competing. Emil Liu, he's Nigerian, but he competes he competes out of like I think Italy or Germany or something like that. But in the last few years his condition is never really like that great, but it's gotten better. It's just got weird, waist nothing, shoulders are massive as fuck. Like in leg, he is. If he comes in condition, I remember like to this day, like Alberta and I were like, we just told him like, man, if you can only like, Alberta's like, bro, let me work with you. Like,
yeah,
like if he can just like come condition, I think it would definitely be up there. But segue, out of those conditions, this shape, I'm a huge Kendall fan.
Yeah, same. And I think just for the listeners who aren't aware, I believe Kendall's in his early or mid 20s. Is that right?
Yeah, the dude just started like competing like 4 years ago. Like,
yeah,
he's not like, everything he ran track. He's always, he's one of those guys who just walk around all jacked all the time. Like, oh, you know what? Oh, yeah, let's try this bodybuilding thing. Oh, shit, I'm really good at it.
Yeah. So for even if Kendall has not come out on top in that matchup right now, he has, as we've talked about before, 1 to 2 decades to improve before he starts to hit a plateau. So I think it'll be very interesting to see, the future of the sport now that we can actually compete again post-COVID. So or getting close to post-COVID, I should say. So that's another question I got for you, Sam. Is what do you see as some of the rising stars in natural bodybuilding or matchups you want to see? What are you interested in seeing in the next few years?
We're trying to get the soundbite, Sam. Give us something, man.
We want that controversy.
There's a guy I posted. I posted on my story 2 days ago. Coliseum Ken, I think that's his handle, or I can send the tag to you guys. And and I posted him, and I was like, literally, I got like 20 messages. No, it's not Natty. It's not Natty. It's not Natty. Dude, the dude is. If he can get, which I think is always like a hard thing for like a lot of guys, natural guys that just have massive, like a lot of mass. They struggle a little bit to get, in terms of conditioning down. The dude, it's not like a big, this is a big social media guy. Like, he doesn't put a lot of shit out there. If I don't know him, I would question his like natural status. That's how massive he is. But I know him because he's Nigerian, and I was like, I was gonna make like, don't get your feelings hurt because you're not from that part of the world. That just genetics are just like on a different level, and he's been doing it for quite some time. And he's definitely that. Somebody that I think is prepping right now. And it's somebody that I think can be a world champ. Wait till you see him right now. I'm messing up his handle, but that's somebody I'm excited for this year.
Awesome. Yeah, well, so be on the lookout, folks, because we're actually going to have some competitions again, which is great. I think there's going to be some really good years for natural bodybuilding because a bunch of people, like you said, have had to take some time off.
Chestnificent also, by the way. I think he has an awesome physique.
Yes, Chestnificent, absolutely.
I think Jeff worked with him last 2019. Strong powerlifter. And another one, I feel like I'm shouting out like my Nigerian brothers. I just worked with a guy right now, Charles Okoro.
Yes.
He just won the Ryan Coleman male classic physique overall. Like this past weekend, I was lucky enough to work with him. I think he's gonna be masculine. He's going to Worlds, IPF Worlds. I was one IPF World. I think 66 kg. I could be wrong. Yep, that's him.
Yeah, Charles is an incredible powerlifter. He's a world champ powerlifter, and to see him get into bodybuilding, yeah, it's awesome.
I have a funny story if I can share that with you real quick.
Go for
Let
it.
me to tell you why I think he's one of those. He's one of those guys that can just be like, lights out. He has an awesome shape. Gaps in his physique. I don't think so. I mean, he competes at 140 something, 140, the 148. That was his low on show day. So we have the plan out for him, like, and everything's laid out. The show day, okay. The saying, you don't really want to look the way you look. You don't want to look the way you want to look on stage. Then how can I word it? The night before the show, you don't want to look how you want to look on stage the next day. You want to look a little bit like spill a little bit, like a good night of sleep would tighten you up a little bit, so you can just ride that into the stage. At least that's how I like to do it, because when you wake up too flat, then you kind of a little bit behind.
Yeah,
You don't want to
you
be
can never
behind, too
catch
far
up.
behind. You don't be too far ahead. So I think just like that middle spot before you go to bed. So it was like, peak, perfect. Good. Wake up in the morning, like prejudging, slayed it, killed it. Condition was on point. So I'm like, okay, because the show was like later on in the day, so I don't want you to like flatten out. Hey, this is your carb meal, and we had some potatoes, some chicken in there, some sodium in there for him. And I'm like, cool, like, let's do it on the FaceTime at 6 o'clock. And, before an hour before, so because face up on stage, make sure you get some rest, because again, it would do us good just to rest on to enter strenuous. And they sent a app on FaceTime, and like, you changed. What happened? Like, he spilled hard. And I didn't want to see anything, because I don't want to, at that point, being a coach, you want to stress him out.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't really help the situation more. And I'm like, no more food, like nothing at all. Like, like whatever we do, we're just gonna ride this in. So after the show, it went overall, and I'm like, how much food did you eat? Like, in between the show, like, what did you do between the show? So like, I ate this. So come to find out, we're just like, he ate. It confused. Somehow, he wasn't thinking straight. It confused, I think, 40 grams or 60 grams of carbs from like sweet potato to like, I ended up being like 100. After doing the math, he was like 100 and like maybe 30 grams of carbs worth of like potatoes.
I love this. This is the Sam Okunola puts his clients on blast, episode, like just repeatedly.
The juice on the juice.
No,
Look at these idiots.
I'm good. Charles, no, I love you.
He won.
But no, but that's what I'm trying to say. Like, if a guy like that can spill, granted, I mean, not to no shot at the NPC. I mean, it's an NPC show. I feel like, but if it was like a natural show, it could have been a different outcome. But a guy like that looking that way and spilling hard and still winning overall. Imagine like what he could have done if it was like a tad sharper, because that was the plan to like sharpen out throughout the night. But somebody to look out for. But I was just it was funny that we had that little slip up.
Hey, I don't know if you agree, but I think Charles, looking at his physique reminds me of Sean Clarita back when he was a WNBF competitor. Very similar shape. Yeah. And for those who don't know, people are probably aware of Sean Clarita as in his IFBB.
WNBF competitor.
Yes, and he won the lightweight division in Worlds. He used to be mixing it up with Brian Whitaker all the time. And just very, very talented natural competitor before he decided to
and the likes of
go that route.
Obviously.
Yes, similar. Yep, absolutely. So no, those are some excellent shout outs, and I think it's awesome to see the likes of a very high level power lifter going the other way, because often we see it, people will leave bodybuilding for powerlifting. That's kind of their version of retirement, as in, I want to eat cookies again. Yeah. So this has been great. Omar, I think I covered all the fun stuff I wanted to cover. Is there anything you wanted to touch on?
Man, Eric, I think you've done a phenomenal job. I also think Sam has demonstrated during this episode what being adaptive actually means live in front of us. So I'm very cognizant of your time, so I'm not going to take much more of it, because you do have 2 young children where you're like, hey, man, I'm going to make the smooth transition where I saw video went out, you came back, I'm like, we're in the backyard. And I know your central times is kind of close to East Coast time. Sun's also going to be setting soon, so it's like our window of opportunity is closing. So I think I'll put it this way.
Look at my man.
Look,
I
see all this.
By the way.
Hey, it was like seamless too, where we're not going to say the get, but like a mic incident happened and then it just like derailed the whole episode and it took 30 minutes to get it back. It's like, that's
Right.
if you
He
want to know
teleported.
that.
Hey,
it turned off.
I thought you guys needed a little more ambiance,
Yeah.
in the background, some bird dripping.
It was perfect.
I just agree with you. No, honestly, I think this is up there with some of my favorite episodes because we talk about lifting, but then we talk about how it relates to everything else. We talk about the process. We talk about really not just the end outcome, but what went into it, the content in someone's character, what's applicable maybe to those listening, and also then honestly the coaching process that I think. Reading some of the comments, the amount of coaches or people that are interested in that sphere seems to grow. I mean, if you're passionate about this sport and, lifting in general, it's kind of natural to have an inclination towards that. So, no, man, I thought we covered so much, Eric.
Awesome. Well, I think with that, Sam, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with or any final things that you want to touch on that we don't feel we covered? And if not, at the very least, you got to let people know where they can find you if they want to reach out for coaching or just see more of your awesome physique.
Yeah, we touched on it. A lot of stuff. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of you guys. And when we talked about coming on the show, I'm like, me? Why? Like,
I'm just a world champion. Come on.
I'm but a world champion. Why would I be on here?
I'm like, why am I coming on the show? Like, I like it. Again, I work, I plug it in. Like I said, I am well into the episode that you guys have done. So it's quite the honor to be again. Eric. I'm a huge fan of your work, huge fan of your contributions, like just science or and the lifting, bodybuilding, or physique world. Everything that you guys do, trying to keep that space as honest as possible. And giving people there are the plethora of choices and ways you can do things. It's just doesn't have to be black and white. And have the integrity behind it too, which doesn't really exist anymore. So and Omar, this might be a shameless plug, but we had a conversation about coming on the team of Rascal Pal, and once I posted it, like the amount of people that reached out to me that know, and again, not to treat my own on to I appreciate the fact that people know that when I decide to partner up or collab with somebody, like it's not somebody that it's legit, the reputation, it's held in the highest regard, and people could be like, wow, I'm not surprised by that collaboration at all because they respect what you do, in the kind of space of keeping, that fitness space honest, and besides, the clickbaity shit that's going on. The cloud chasing everything, they respect that and, they appreciate that fact. So, again, you two, massive thank you for having me on, and we covered pretty much everything. And if there's anything I want to leave people on, I think this might be in the natty realm, which I think it's unfortunate. I know a lot of younger people. We live in a digital age that you see so much shit nowadays. I want to be like that guy. You think the results come super quick, and you lost the ability to critically think for yourself, emotionally react something that you want something right away without you know what, maybe I should ask the right question, how did you get to this level, and not just assume somebody gets to that level. And I think the point where people see somebody that's I think Doug Miller puts the shit best to it's either if you're a good bodybuilder, it's one thing, there's no good bodybuilder anymore. It's either you're a shitty bodybuilder that look good, or you're just not natty. If you look good, you're not natty, or you're just a shitty bodybuilder. I think that's how he puts it. So just looking at that, I think understanding people's journeys are going to be different. People's journey, it takes time, and I think one thing I love about fitness and bodybuilding in general is just the parallels that it drives. At least from my point of view, the way I look at it is you can draw any parallel from any situation in the gym or training to in life shit. And I think that's one of the cool things of that's for me, that's one of the dopest part about just lifting in general, not just because quote unquote to look good or whatever. But yeah, that's one thing I want to get enjoy the process. Don't rush it. Take your time. It's if I stumbled on bodybuilding, bodybuilding was not some shit I want to do. Literally, I'm like, oh sure, let's this getting long-winded, but the first show that I did, Doris was in it. Literally, I was like, I'm just here to pose, and I can hear Doris in the back of the audience, bro, wake the fuck up, he's yelling, audience. Like, wake the fuck up. Like, your bodybuilding show, like, I think it was he saw, like, there's a chance, like, wow, he could actually fucking win. I mean, he could win the show, like, and yell and shit, like, bro, act like you've been there before. Like, don't look like a deer in the headlight. And, just get me to the point being like, I never thought, was never like, oh, yeah, I want to be a world champ one day or win a couple of shows. It's just like, no, I mean, wow, this is pretty cool. You can invest X amount of time or a lot of time into something. It might not come out the way you want it, but still go back and still, be happy you invested that time because it's worth a while doing that. You gain a lot of perspective from it. So enjoy the process. Don't rush it. Take it one day at a time. Have a plan. And just love what you do. If you want to find me, it's pretty easy. YouTube, Samuel Kid Fit, and I think all across all the platform, IG is just my name. So it's uncomplicated.
I love it. So you heard it here, folks. If you follow Sam's advice as a natural bodybuilder, you can eventually graduate from having a crappy physique to being a cheater. And that's why you don't chase clout, because success only breeds
Contempt.
more contempt. So just want to say thank you so much for being on, Sam. In all seriousness, those are very wise words. I think you shared what it is really important and the things you can learn from this, which I know we're trying to hammer it home here on Iron Culture, but we have a brand to maintain, and we're doing that today. So we thank you. And with that, Omar, I'm going to let you carry us out into the sunset, which we can see is actually occurring in Sam's backyard.
Let me just say that hunks being hunky is where we're at, and we just feel at home when we speak about these things. So, Sam, I want to thank you, my man, for being on. We'll make sure to link the social media in the description. Listen, we're going to be reading rating and reviews on probably the next episode, so you could go ahead, and I figured out how to see, Eric, reviews outside of just North America. So yes, international listeners, you could go ahead. You could leave whatever rating you want. There's only one that counts. We have our, again, team of lawyers that will find you and pressure you basically into changing whatever you leave. But go ahead and leave a rating and review.
From Delaware.
From the very real state of Delaware, where people are they're coming in droves to live there because it's just popping. Leave the reviews, and we'll see you every single Monday.